I know I'm just an old guy spinning tales, but some tales aren't meant to be ignored. Trust me, you'll want to hear this one. So turn down the lights, settle in, and let's dive into today's chilling stories. Before we begin, a fair warning. What you're about to hear is purely for entertainment. These stories and theories, they're nothing more than shadows in the dark. No proof, just whispers carried by the night. Listen closely, but don't say, "I didn't warn you." Viewer discretion is strongly advised. I arrived at the hotel just past midnight, exhausted after a long day on the road. The building was a little more rundown than I'd expected, with peeling paint and flickering neon lights that barely illuminated the empty parking lot. The receptionist at the front desk was an older man with a forced smile and sunken eyes. He handed me a room key, one of those old-fashioned metal ones, and muttered, "Room 308, elevators on the left." "Thanks," I said, though his lack of eye contact made me uneasy. The hallway leading to room 308 was dimly lit, the carpet frayed and stained. A faint smell of bleach lingered in the air, sharp and unpleasant, as if they'd tried too hard to clean something that couldn't be erased. When I opened the door to the room, I froze. The bed was unmade, the sheets crumpled and hanging off the edge. A dark, reddish stain covered part of the carpet near the bed, and the air was thick with the metallic tang of iron, mixed with something sickly sweet. I stepped inside cautiously, flicking on the light. The bulb buzzed faintly, casting a dim, yellow glow over the room. I went back to the front desk, holding the key tightly in my hand. "There's something wrong with room 308, I said. The receptionist's smile didn't falter, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "The bed wasn't made, and there's a huge stain on the carpet. It's unsettling." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'll move you to another room. Sometimes housekeeping misses one." "But the stain," I started to say. "It's just old," he interrupted, his tone sharp. "Don't worry about it." He handed me a new key, this time for room 312. Room 312 was cleaner, barely. The bed was made, the air smelled faintly of lavender, and the lights worked without buzzing. I tried to settle in, telling myself the strange encounter was nothing. But as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The walls seemed too thin, and I could hear faint noises coming from room 308. Footsteps. I told myself it was just another guest, but the sound was uneven, like someone pacing back and forth with a limp. And then came the whispering. It was faint at first, like the distant murmur of a TV left on too low. But as the night wore on, it grew louder. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was insistent, pleading. I got up, pressed my ear to the wall, and held my breath. "Help me," a voice whispered, faint and broken. I stumbled back, my heart racing. Grabbing my phone, I called the front desk. "Is there someone in room 308? I asked, my voice trembling. "No," the receptionist said firmly. "That room's supposed to be empty." I hung up the phone, but the receptionist's answer left me more unsettled than reassured. Room 308 was supposed to be empty. The pacing footsteps and faint whispering continued, growing louder, more erratic. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew better. Grabbing my phone and a flashlight, I made my way down the dimly lit hallway toward room 308. The door to room 308 stood slightly ajar, a faint glow spilling out into the hallway. I hesitated, my hand trembling as I reached for the handle. "Hello?" I called softly, hoping for no response. The whispering stopped. The sudden silence was worse than the sound. I pushed the door open slowly, the hinges creaking as the room came into view. The bed was still unmade, the dark stain on the carpet now seeming larger in the dim light. The air was heavy, and the metallic smell I'd noticed earlier was stronger, almost suffocating. On the nightstand sat an old, battered journal, its leather cover cracked and worn. Beside it was a small key, tarnished with age. Curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of me. I picked up the journal, flipping through its yellowed pages. The handwriting was frantic, uneven, as if whoever had written it was in a panic. The first page read, "If you're reading this, leave now. Room 308 isn't safe. The stain never fades, and the voices never stop. Whatever you do, don't look under the bed." My hands shook as I turned the page. The entries became more erratic, describing strange occurrences. Shadows moving on their own, whispers growing louder, and the feeling of being watched. One line sent chills down my spine. "I saw her last night. She was standing in the corner, watching me. Her eyes were hollow, but I could feel her hatred." I froze when I read the last line of the journal. "She's under the bed. She's always under the bed." The room felt colder, the air pressing down on me like a weight. My flashlight flickered, and I heard a faint rustling sound. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. Slowly, I crouched down, shining the flashlight beneath the bed. There was nothing there. Relief washed over me for a brief moment, until I stood up and saw the figure in the mirror. She was behind me. Her hollow eyes stared into mine, her mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. Her skin was pale and mottled, her hair tangled and dripping as if she'd just crawled out of water. I spun around, but the room was empty. The figure was gone. The whispers started again, louder this time, overlapping into a cacophony of voices. "Help us. Leave. She's coming." I bolted for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway seemed longer than before, the shadows deeper, as if they were reaching for me. When I reached the front desk, the receptionist was gone. The lobby was dark, the front doors locked. I pounded on the glass, screaming for help, but no one came. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A new message appeared. "You can't leave." Desperate, I ran back to room 308, hoping to find something, anything, that could explain what was happening. The room was different now. The bed was gone, the furniture overturned, and the walls were covered in scratch marks. The stain on the carpet pulsed faintly, like it was alive. The journal lay open on the floor, turned to a page I hadn't seen before. "The key is hers. Use it, or you'll stay forever." I grabbed the small key from the nightstand, noticing a faint outline of a trapdoor beneath the carpet where the stain was darkest. I stared at the faint outline of the trapdoor beneath the carpet. The journal's words echoed in my mind. "The key is hers. Use it, or you'll stay forever." The air in the room grew colder, the whispers intensifying, overlapping in a chaotic symphony of desperation. My hands trembled as I crouched down and peeled back the corner of the stained carpet. Beneath it was a small rusted trap door with a keyhole. The key felt heavier in my hand as I inserted it into the lock. For a moment, I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed to stop, to leave, to find a way out of this nightmare. But something kept me there. Curiosity, fear, or maybe the unsettling feeling that leaving wasn't an option anymore. With a faint click, the trap door unlocked. The smell hit me first, damp, rotten, and metallic. A small ladder descended into a dark, narrow crawl space. I shined my flashlight into the darkness, but the beam barely penetrated the thick, oppressive blackness below. The walls were made of rough stone, damp and slick with moisture. Whispers echoed faintly, growing louder as I climbed down. They weren't coming from a single voice anymore. They were a chorus, overlapping and distorted, as if dozens of people were speaking at once. Help us. Stay with us. She's watching. At the bottom of the crawl space, I found a small circular chamber. The walls were covered in scratches, some forming words. Don't trust her. She won't let you leave. The stain is her mark. In the center of the room was a crude altar, surrounded by scattered belongings, jewelry, keys, torn clothing. The air felt suffocating, heavy with an overwhelming sense of dread. And then I saw it. In the corner of the chamber stood the figure I had seen in the mirror. She was hunched over, her hair hanging in wet, matted clumps, her hollow eyes locked onto mine, and her mouth twisted into a grotesque grin. "You came back!" she hissed, her voice layered with echoes. I stumbled back, my flashlight shaking. "What do you want?" Her grin widened, revealing blackened teeth. "To make you part of the house." The whispers grew louder, more urgent, as the shadows in the room began to shift and move. They stretched toward me, clawing at the edges of the light. I scrambled toward the ladder, but the figure moved with unnatural speed, blocking my path. "You can't leave," she said, her voice sharp and venomous. "You're mine now!" I grabbed a loose piece of wood from the floor and swung it wildly, the impact passing through her like smoke. She laughed, a hollow, chilling sound that made my skin crawl. In a desperate move, I held up the small key. The laughter stopped abruptly, her expression twisting into one of rage and fear. "No," she hissed, her form flickering like a dying flame. "That doesn't belong to you." The whispers around me turned into screams, and the chamber began to shake violently. I used the key to scrape one of the markings on the wall, following a faint, glowing outline. The figure lunged at me, but the key emitted a blinding light, forcing her back. With every mark I traced, the room grew brighter, and the shadows retreated. Finally, the figure let out a piercing scream and dissolved into the darkness. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. Climbing the ladder as fast as I could, I burst back into room 308, slamming the trap door shut behind me. The room was silent now, the whispers gone. The air felt lighter, but the sense of unease lingered. As I turned to leave, I saw the receptionist standing in the doorway, his face pale and his eyes wide. "You shouldn't have done that," he said, his voice trembling. "What was that thing?" I demanded. He shook his head, stepping back into the hallway. "The house doesn't let go. You've only made it angrier." Before I could respond, the lights flickered and the door slammed shut between us. I ran to the front desk, but the lobby was empty, the doors locked. My phone buzzed with a new message. "The stain grows." When I looked back down the hallway, the stain on the carpet outside room 308 had spread, dark tendrils creeping toward me. I turned and ran, determined to escape. But as I reached the lobby, the same words from the journal flashed across the windows in smeared red. "She's always under the bed." I sprinted down the hallway, my breath coming in short gasps. The stain outside room 308 seemed alive, spreading in jagged, pulsing lines that snaked across the carpet, reaching for me, "Let me out!" I screamed, pounding on the glass doors of the lobby. But the hotel remained silent, its walls absorbing my desperation like a sponge. My phone buzzed again, and this time the message was chillingly simple. "You can't run." I don't remember how I got out. One moment I was trapped in the lobby, and the next I was outside, stumbling into the night. The air was cold and sharp, but it felt like freedom. I drove until the first hint of sunrise, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The hotel was a distant memory, fading with the light of day. Or so I thought. When I reached my apartment, I collapsed onto my couch, exhaustion pulling me into a restless sleep. But when I woke up, the same metallic smell from room 308 filled the air. I froze as my eyes landed on the corner of the living room. There it was, the stain. Smaller, but unmistakable, the dark patch on my carpet pulsed faintly, as if alive. My chest tightened as whispers began to echo faintly from the walls. I searched my belongings frantically, hoping to find some clue to explain what was happening. That's when I saw it. The journal from room 308 was on my coffee table, its leather cover stained with fresh droplets of water. I hadn't brought it with me. My hands trembled as I opened it, flipping through the pages. New words had appeared, scrawled in the same frantic handwriting. "You brought her home. The stain never fades. Burn it, and she'll grow stronger." I couldn't stay in my apartment. I packed a bag, left the journal on the table, and drove aimlessly, hoping to outrun whatever was following me. But every motel, every gas station, every place I stopped, the stain appeared. Sometimes it was faint, a damp patch on the wall, or a dark smear on the floor. Other times it was larger, spreading faster, accompanied by the faint, chilling whispers. "She's watching. She's waiting." I couldn't escape her. After a week of running, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You need to go back." I stared at the screen, shaking my head. "No," I whispered. "I'm never going back there." But the whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they weren't just in my head. They were everywhere. Outside my car, inside every room I entered. The journal appeared again, this time in the passenger seat of my car, its pages open to a single, chilling line. "If you don't go back, she'll take you anyway." I didn't want to go back, but I had no choice. When I pulled into the hotel parking lot, it looked different. The peeling paint was gone, the neon lights brighter, and the building seemed alive. Room 308's door was wide open, as if it had been waiting for me. I stepped inside, the air thick with the familiar smell of iron and decay. The stain had spread across the entire floor, pulsing faintly with a dark, unnatural energy. The whispers turned into a deafening roar as the figure from the crawl space emerged, her hollow eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You thought you could leave me," she hissed, her voice echoing with malice. I backed against the wall, clutching the journal. "What do you want?" Her grin widened. "To be remembered, to live, through you." The journal's final entry burned in my mind. "Burn it, and she'll grow stronger. Keep it, and she'll consume you. The only way to end it is to trap her again." I looked at the trap door in the center of the room, now fully exposed. The key lay beside it, tarnished and faintly glowing. "I won't let you win," I whispered, grabbing the key. Her laughter filled the room as I pried open the trap door. The shadows surged toward me, clawing at my arms, but I forced myself forward. With one final push, I slammed the journal into the crawl space, sealing it with the key. The room erupted in a blinding light, the whispers turning into a deafening scream. The figure lunged at me, her hollow eyes filled with rage, but as the light consumed her, she dissolved into smoke, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, the room was empty. The stain was gone, the air was clear, and the oppressive weight I'd felt for weeks had lifted. I left the hotel without looking back, hoping it was truly over. But as I got into my car, my phone buzzed with a new message. "She's waiting for the next guest."